Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Scary Stories channel. Tonight we're diving into a tale that blurs the lines between reality and something else. It's a story about a place forgotten by the world, a single room where the rules of time don't seem to apply. Our story begins with a young urban explorer named Leo. Leo had a reputation for finding the forgotten corners of the city. He'd explored abandoned hospitals, decaying theaters, and factories reclaimed by nature. But his latest obsession was a place whispered about in online forums, the old Blackwood Manor. It was a Victorian relic, a hulking shadow on the edge of town, rumored to be perfectly preserved inside, as if the owners had simply vanished one day. Most explorers avoided it, citing a strange, unsettling feeling that permeated the grounds. But for Leo, that was just an invitation. One crisp autumn evening, armed with his flashlight and camera, Leo slipped through a broken fence and made his way to the manor. The front door was bolted shut, but he found a small, broken window on the ground floor. After carefully clearing the glass, he hoisted himself inside, landing silently on a dust-covered floor. The air was thick and still, heavy with the scent of old wood and decay. Moonlight streamed through the grimy windows, illuminating a grand hallway frozen in time. Furniture was draped in white sheets like ghostly figures waiting for their owners to return. Leo started documenting his find, snapping pictures of the grand staircase and the portraits whose eyes seemed to follow him. He explored the ground floor, a library with books still on the shelves, a dining room set for a dinner that never happened. Everything was coated in a fine layer of dust, but otherwise untouched. It was eerie, but not yet terrifying. The real mystery, according to the legends, was on the second floor, a specific room at the end of the hall, the nursery. Making his way up the creaking staircase, Leo felt a noticeable drop in temperature. His breath plumed in the air. He walked down the long, dark corridor, his flashlight beam cutting through the oppressive blackness. The doors to the bedrooms were all slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of four-poster beds and antique dressers. But the door at the very end of the hall was different. It was closed, a small, unassuming wooden door with a tarnished brass knob. As he reached for the handle, a strange sensation washed over him, a feeling of static electricity. A low hum that seemed to vibrate in his bones. He hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. Every instinct told him to turn back, to leave this place and never return. But curiosity, that powerful, dangerous force, won out. He turned the knob. The lock clicked open with a sound that was unnervingly loud in the silence. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was a child's nursery, but it was unlike the rest of the house. There was no dust. None at all. A small wooden rocking horse stood in the center of the room, looking as if it had just been polished. A crib in the corner had a pristine white blanket neatly folded inside. A collection of porcelain dolls sat on a shelf, their glass eyes gleaming in his flashlight beam. They seemed almost watchful. But the most bizarre thing was the window. Through it, Leo didn't see the dark, moonlit garden he'd just left behind. He saw a bright, sunny afternoon. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere outside, and the trees were full of green leaves, swaying in a gentle summer breeze. He blinked, shaking his head. It had to be a trick of the light, some kind of reflection. He stepped closer to the window and pressed his hand against the glass. It was warm, as if bathed in sunlight. Confused and disoriented, he turned away from the window and looked around the room again. That's when he noticed a small music box on a dresser. It was intricately carved with images of dancing fairies. On impulse, he reached out and lifted the lid. A soft, tinkling melody began to play, a lullaby that was both beautiful and deeply sorrowful. As the music filled the room, something shifted. The light from his flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for his backup, but his hands were shaking. When he finally got the second light to work, he gasped. The room had changed. The rocking horse was now in a different position, closer to the door. The dolls on the shelf had been rearranged. Their heads were all turned to face him directly. And the music box, it was closed again. A cold dread seeped into Leo's bones. He hadn't heard the lid shut. He hadn't seen anything move. He backed away slowly, his flashlight beam trembling. He needed to get out. Now. He turned and lunged for the door, but as his hand closed around the knob, he realized it wouldn't turn. It was locked. He rattled it frantically, pulling and pushing, but it was solid, trapped. Panic set in. He pounded on the door, shouting for help, knowing it was useless. No one could hear him. He was alone in this impossible room. He spun around, shining his light everywhere, searching for another way out. The window. He rushed over to it, but the bright, sunny day was gone. Now the window showed a raging blizzard, snow piling up against the pane. It was impossible. It was autumn just minutes ago. Defeated, he sank to the floor, his back against the locked door. He pulled out his phone to check the time. The screen was blank, dead. He then looked at his wristwatch. The hands were spinning wildly, a blur of motion. First forward, then backward, then stopping and starting again. Time was broken here. He didn't know how long he sat there. Hours? Days? The scene outside the window kept changing. He saw spring blossoms, autumn leaves, scorching summer sun, and deep winter snow, all cycling in a dizzying, unnatural loop. The room itself remained unchanged, pristine and dust-free. The dolls watched him, their painted smiles mocking his terror. The rocking horse seemed to move slightly every time he looked away. At some point, exhaustion overtook fear, and he drifted into a restless sleep. He dreamt of the children's laughter he'd heard, but in the dream it was distorted and cruel. He dreamt of the dolls whispering his name. He woke up with a start, his heart hammering. The room was silent. The music box sat on the dresser, its lid closed. He felt an overwhelming urge to open it again, a morbid curiosity to see what would happen. But he resisted. He tried the door again. This time with a faint click, the knob turned. It opened. He didn't hesitate. He scrambled out into the hallway, slamming the door shut behind him. He didn't look back. He sprinted down the corridor, his footsteps echoing in the vast, silent manor. He flew down the grand staircase, his only thought to get out, to escape into the real world, into real time. He launched himself through the broken window he'd entered, not even caring about the shards of glass that scratched his arms. He landed on the damp earth outside and ran. He didn't stop running until the Blackwood Manor was just a dark silhouette against the night sky. When he finally felt safe enough to stop, he leaned against a tree, gasping for air. He pulled out his phone. It lit up. The battery was full. He checked the time and date. According to his phone, only 10 minutes had passed since he first entered the manor. 10 minutes. But he knew, in his soul, that he had been in that nursery for days, maybe even weeks. Leo never went urban exploring again. He deleted all the photos from his camera and tried to forget what he had seen. But he couldn't. The memory of the room where time stood still was burned into his mind. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, he swears he can hear the faint, tinkling melody of a music box. He's left with an unsettling question that haunts his waking moments. Is the room still waiting, cycling through seasons, for its next visitor? And what happens to the person who stays too long? Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the shadows. Stay safe, and whatever you do, be careful which doors you choose to open.